Facebook just made a massive change that's going to affect every real estate agent and the ability to get leads from Facebook ads. And so we're going to dive into that today. And if you don't know me, my name is Cole Jarvis. I've helped real estate agents over the past 5 years grow their following, get more leads, and get more views and market share of their market with social media content. And that's with Jarvis Media Consolidated, my company. And all that information is packaged here to hopefully make your experience as a real estate agent better and get you more money with your marketing. And so I want to share an article that came out yesterday that is really, really cool, which is basically a big change that's happening to Facebook ads. If you don't run Facebook ads, basically there's a lot of different ways, of course, you can get leads. However, my favorite versions and the way I get all my business for my company is Facebook lead form ads. Now, before you jump away, most agents do lead form ads wrong. And so I'm going to talk about what they do wrong and how, of course, this change makes them even more powerful than before and how it solves a major issue that real estate agents have. So let's jump right into it. This is on socialmediatoday.com, great website for social media updates. Basically, Meta is launching an integrated booking for lead ads. Essentially, what this means is that when you're running your lead ads, your lead form ads, you used to be able to ask all of these questions, and you still can, of course. But with those questions, you now also have the ability to actually ask them to book a time. What's really cool about this is that it's integrated inside of the lead form ad, and that's really big because when a lead comes in or somebody responds to your ad, they have a high amount of action taking. They have a high amount of incentive for a very short period of time. And so this will be the case if you ever notice you've run a lead form ad before, and let's say you get a bunch of leads and then you try calling them like a day later and they don't remember you, they don't care, they're not looking to buy or sell anymore, and you're like, what the hell, this doesn't make any sense. That's because leads have a high amount of incentive for a very short period of time. That's why speed to lead, the speed at which you can actually reach out to your lead the first time, is so important. But that's not always doable for us without, some tools and stuff that can help. But this is a major factor that influences this. I'm going to dive into why, but let's get back to the actual specific article. So, Meta announced new embedded appointment booking for lead ads, which will integrate third-party booking platforms directly into the ads itself. This update includes pre-filled fields within the booking form in order to streamline setup. I'm going to talk about why that actually might not be a good thing to use in just a second. So as you can see here, if you're familiar with lead form ads, this will look familiar. Basically, you can put in your contact information, you have a privacy policy page, and then built right into it is you can actually book a meeting. And so what they say here is, as shown in the sequence with this updated approach, prospective customers who can choose to submit their information will be taken directly from the lead ad to an advertiser's third-party booking process. This integrated approach will ensure that warm leads are fed directly the booking process on an advertiser's website, reducing friction in the booking process. So really quickly, I'm going to pause where we are in the article here because I want to kind of explain this a little bit more in depth. If you're not, as familiar with basically how these systems can work, a lot of real estate agents rely the majority of their business is coming from referral marketing, where you don't actually have to do as much to win the sale. And let me explain that. So if we jump over here, this is basically the conversion process, right? Whenever we have any sort of a lead come in, right? So first of all, you need to be, known, right? When you have some kind of an ad going out there, you're basically paying to get in front of the target, lead, that the person you're trying to get in front of, right? And so first of all, you have to be known. And so that is in this case where we have our ad, right? So our ad gets in front of people, and then some people end up clicking, the learn more button, right? The call to action, right? And so we provide, the video, hopefully we do a good job with our advertising, and it gets in front of people, gets them interested in working with us. And then we have some sort of a call to action, right? Telling them to do something. And so in that case, a lot of times this is like on Facebook ads, this is like a learn more button, right? I should just say not learn button, but learn more button. Learn more button, right? So they click that, and like a very small percentage of people on Facebook are going to see your ad, right? And then a very small percentage of those people who see your ad will click the learn more button. That's a natural part of this process. Don't worry about that. And then they go and you have your lead form. So basically, what this does on Facebook and why this is so powerful is a lot of times in the past, what you'd have to do with advertising is you'd get their attention and you'd have to send them somewhere. Well, there's a lot of reasons that's not great because let's say somebody sees your ad and they're really interested and they click on the learn more button, it sends them to your website. But uh-oh, your website's not that great, right? It's a little confusing. There's all this information. You have like an about section, a meet the team section, you have a update section, a blog section. You have all these different options there, and people will go through analysis paralysis when it's not very clear the next step they need to take. That will make a vast majority of people not take any step and just go back. And keep in mind, Facebook ads and Instagram ads are what's called disruptive marketing. We are interrupting what they are on that platform for to give them some sort of an offer, right? And so because of that, you have to understand that they didn't go there looking for the offer, so that incentive at this stage is lower. The cool thing is that you don't have to rely solely on people who are only looking up your offer, right? Which is what like SEO and more intent-based marketing is going to do, like PPC, right? Pay per click, where basically you have to pay Google an absurd amount of money to get your website on the top part of the search, and you have to beat out every other agent in your market and hope that you just have the most dollars you can spend there to beat them and then get to the very front there. That's very, very costly, and that's why disruptive based marketing is great, because it's a little bit more based off of like the performance, right? How good you can be at building systems instead of just how much money you can pay, which is generally what pay per click is, right? So the lead form is coming up and they've clicked learn more. So they've taken the next step to learn more, right? So we have a more incentivized lead than just the people who, saw the ad. And then the lead form is going to ask them a couple of questions. Now, the huge mistake that real estate agents make here is they just go with the default questions, right? And that's going to be your, name, email, and then phone. Here's why that's an issue. One, the lead form ads are built to be convenient. And that's the reason is because instead of sending people to your website where they have to disrupt their experience even more, they went on Facebook or they went on Instagram to see their friends and family stuff. Now they're clicking an ad that's taking them to a brand new website. It's a little bit, that's a big ask. And then on top of that, your website needs to perform well. And if your website doesn't load quickly, like, well, forget it, because people are not going to wait for you to show them an advertisement that's already disrupting their time, right? So that is where, you lose a lot of people. The lead form ad solves that because it keeps them in platform. It's just a little questionnaire that pops up, and then they can answer that and go right back to where they were, right? It's very low disruptive. And so that's a good thing. The downside to that is that it's so low disruptive, it is just as easy to get a lead to just click through and submit as it is for them to click away. It actually might be easier when you only have these default questions here. So that's where you get a lot of leads that have really no interest. If they accidentally click learn more or whatever, they might just click submit and just go through and be like, yeah, okay, I'm done with this, right? Also, you're not really asking them to think or to, commit any time or anything else, right? And so because of that, it's a lower, you're taking up lower mental real estate in their space, right? Like if they can just really quickly answer and move on, they're going to forget you more quickly. And that makes it also harder to when you go and call them and reach out to them and all that kind of stuff. So all of that stuff makes it trickier as well. And then lastly, when we have these name and email and phone number things, what Facebook is going to let you do is have those autofill. And again, convenient. But when did you set up your Facebook? When you were like 15? You probably have a different email. You almost guaranteed to have a different email because a lot of people use an old default email that they don't use anymore because they don't want to get 8 billion notifications from Facebook every day, which is just insane. And that's a problem on that platform. But then on top of that too, they might even have a different phone number, right? And so if you have like the default information going in here, that's going to make it so that, you're going to get like bad info. And so you'll get leads and you might even get high intent leads, but they have bad info. And because of that, when you try to contact them, they're not going to see it, right? So they might have all the intentions in the world of talking with you, and then you can't reach them because their info was autofilled and it was terrible, right? And so that's a huge issue with the default settings with the lead form. And then on top of that too, is again, you don't have any friction. So friction, I've talked about this a lot, is where you want to basically, if I could spell, you want to basically be able to tell people, looks like a 4-year-old wrote that, uh, a bad 4-year-old. That doesn't look much better. Even Apple thinks I'm writing something different. Anyway, with friction, you are basically adding additional questions that can, one, weed out the people who are lower intent, and two, qualify, right? Because if you ask about addition to their name and email and phone number, and you don't just use the autofill stuff, but then you ask about budget for buying or selling their home, right? Like what their home's worth that they're selling, and what their budget is if they're buying. If you ask about timeline, and if you ask about intent, right, you can ask again, like, hey, like, are you actually looking to buy or sell a home in this area where you work, basically, right? If you ask these ones, you can basically, in your lead form ad, do what's called conditional logic. And with that conditional logic, oh my God. And with that conditional logic, you can basically weed out, like, you can have, like, there's, like, three different answers for the budget thing, and like only one of them gets them to the next step. And you can do the same thing with timeline and intent, so that basically you could make it so that only people who have a budget of $400,000 or more, and a timeline of within a couple of months or quicker, and an intent level of, yes, I want to actually buy or sell a home in this market, only the people who answered those questions correctly come through and are actually considered a lead. And that's beneficial because, one hand, you're only getting people who are worth talking to and worth following up with. And on the other hand, it's actually training the ad to get more and more people who look like that. So when you set up your qualifications properly, you're only getting the people who actually are qualified leads. And that basically informs Meta when they're running these ads. Okay, only get people like this because this is what we consider to be a good lead, and everybody else ignore them. And that makes your ad better and better and better. Will your cost per lead go up? 1000%. It is guaranteed to go up. It might be 10 times or 100 times more. But if you're getting $10 leads right now, and it takes you 1,000 leads to get somebody who's good, that's 10,000, right? And you're actually working against yourself because Meta is just trying to get the lowest cost lead because you're not having any qualification in there. So you might not get any qualified leads. Whereas if you get 10 leads for $100, or even 10 leads for $1,000, you would get less leads for the same price, $10,000 in ad spend. That's just a number. Don't get scared about that. It's just a random number for easy math. In that case, you would get 10 leads for $10,000. Wait, 100 leads for $10,000 if it was $100 a lead. If it was $1,000 a lead, you get 10 leads for $1,000 each, making it $10,000. Well, hey, guess what? I'd rather have 10 really, really qualified leads for $1,000 each, where I know I'm going to get on average a commission of $26,000 or something along those lines. And those people are actually qualified and worth my time to follow up consistently, than 1,000 people who I have to sift through the garbage for 8 years just to even get somebody who's interested. And there might not be anybody who's interested in there because there's no qualification. That's the difference there. Obviously, you're probably not going to spend $1,000 per lead. Just don't get worried about that. It might be closer to like $100 per lead. Again, could be very worth it if all your systems are in place. So why does all this matter with the update, Cole? Well, the reason why this matters is because when you do these lead form ads, it's really great at getting qualified leads when you do it correctly. However, the next stage here, from ad to learn more to the lead form, is that when you have the qualifications in place and they fill it out and then they pass and they are a now qualified lead, somebody who you have specifically said, hey, if they hit all of these markers, then I think it's a qualified lead worth me following up with. Great. Well, then it's going to connect to your CRM. Hopefully, right? If you don't have it connected to your CRM, then that's really tough to go into Facebook nonstop and see when those leads come in and just try to reach out to them as soon as they do, right? Because you can have that just go to a spreadsheet, but if you don't have some way of notifying you or having some way of kind of having a response in there, then that's going to be really, really tough. So you really should have your CRM built in to automatically get those lead form ads. And then once those lead form ads come into your CRM, then you actually have to follow up. And this is the part that matters so much with this update, right? Because you need to follow up, and then you need to basically from there book an appointment. And then from the appointment, obviously, then you need to close them. Now, this is going to look a little bit different for every agent out there, but this is the natural order of getting a lead from really any kind of digital source, but specifically Facebook ads, right? With the lead form, that's specific to Facebook lead form ads. So here's the tricky thing. This is the part that messes up the most real estate agents, or at least what I've seen over my 5 years working with real estate agents, is the CRM integration is either not good, or the automatic follow-ups are bad, or they're just purely relying on the automatic follow-ups and they're not doing anything. I had a real estate agent one time I worked with who, when leads would come in, they would basically outsource those leads to a third-party company to basically source them, right? And to basically follow up with them for that real estate agent. And I just remember thinking, there is no way that that person is going to care as much about selling that lead as you or somebody on your team would. And yes, obviously you can use those agencies and they're better than doing nothing, but if you're going to spend money on ads, when a lead comes in and they're qualified, you should be dropping everything to reach out to them, because that's potentially a $26,000 or more or less commission coming in for you. And in real estate, you don't have a lot of transactions that are necessary to make a huge difference. So every lead is worth their weight in gold when they're qualified. Again, if you've done this system right. And so if you just rely on your CRM alone to do all the follow-up, you're basically really, really hoping that your prompts are really good. And I guarantee most real estate agents haven't really ABC tested those prompts to see what gets the best responses. But then on top of that, you also just need to hope that, like, that's going to be enough or as competitive as possible. When in reality, a phone call with a real person is going to be the highest likelihood that you will convert. Why? Because it's one of the biggest differentiators. Can AI do a phone call follow-up? 100%. Can it be really good? 100%. But what you're doing now is you're just trading the ability to reach out to that lead and follow up with them quickly with the ability to train an AI to do a good job. And if you're not experienced, I guarantee most real estate agents are more experienced with talking to leads than they are with training AI. So yes, AI can 1000% do the job just as well as any human, or if not better, when it's trained properly. However, most people use only AI for, asking ChatGPT a question every once in a while, or to write my social media scripts, and that is their extent of their AI experience. So if you don't have experience training AI, that AI will not be good compared to your experience working with real estate people in your market. So I really recommend that you actually have your CRM notify you and kind of force you to call your lead within 60 seconds. And this is so important. And not only that, but then you also need to do this repeatedly, over and over and over again. Call them multiple times a day, every single day for the first like week. And then after that, call them once a day, every single day for 6 weeks before you even consider looking at that lead as a cold lead. And that's exactly what a real estate agent I worked with who got the best results out of ads that I've ever seen, which was 4 transactions within the first 30 days of running an ad. And they spent $300 on ad spend. It was nothing. It was nothing for those leads. And that system was just so good. He had a VA calling them every single day, twice a day for the first 3 days, and then once a day for the next 6 weeks before they even stopped. And then on top of that, there was email and SMS follow-up, and he would reach out whenever he got the chance as well. So volume is so important and speed is so important. But most people are getting tripped up with their CRM here. And what is really cool is that this massive change that Facebook has just basically made here to how their lead formats can work is that you can basically bypass the CRM and the follow-up and get right to the appointment. And this is great because, again, this is one of the things that trips up the most real estate agents is their CRM and their follow-up. Because if they're bad at following up, it doesn't matter how good the lead is, they're probably not going to talk to them. If their CRM isn't set up, then they're really not going to have enough volume or even know when the lead's coming in immediately to follow up with them in the first place. So most real estate agents get tripped up on, well, one, qualifying the lead. But if you're doing that properly, and I have many videos that talk about that, and you actually have lead form ads that are getting leads that have high intent, then you can actually skip all of this and have them just book an appointment with you. And what's really cool is that's going to skip all of this stuff that you're probably not doing that well anyway, or that most people are not doing that well anyway. So you can actually skip an entire massive part of your funnel and get straight to booking the appointment because this ad is going to automatically let you trigger that right when they're at their highest level of intent. Because leads have a high level of intent for a very short period of time. And so if you can front load as much as possible of the funnel into that time where they are highly incentivized, then you are going to get way more people coming through there. And then when you're booking your appointments, you just need to make sure, obviously, to have enough reminder messages in there to remind them why they're coming, to incentivize them to show up to the call, to actually get them to the call. And I guarantee you, if you get 10 times the amount of appointments, then you will have 10 times the amount of closes. Yes, not everyone's going to show up to that appointment. Yes, not everyone's going to close. But right now, you might be closing 10% of the people that you talk to. So if you just increase the amount of people that you talk to by 10%, by 100 times, by let's say 5x the amount of people that you talk to, and you're still only closing 10%, great. No worries. We're still closing 5 times more people, right? And that's massive for any real estate agent, is to increase 5, 10 times the amount of transactions they have. That's mind blowing. And you can really do that because every single part of this funnel, there is drop off, right? You have people at the top reaching out to the ad. Then you have people at the middle here who are, following or to actually, fill out the ad form and qualify. Then you have people here who actually respond and actually book an appointment. Then you have the show rate, and then you have the people who actually close, right? And so all of these are different steps where you're going to lose people. So if you can basically just cut out the middleman and only have, 3 steps here, which is basically, lead form, there's more, but lead form, qualification, then booking the call right when they're highly incentivized, and then closing, the percentage at which that you close, that actually makes it so you're skipping many steps where people are going to drop off. You're making it an easier process for the qualified leads who are coming into your system. And so that's why this is so massively important. So let's go back to see what this literally looks like in kind of practice here. Oops. Let's do it like that. Okay. So, as explained by Meta, the gap between form submissions and appointment booking has always been a challenge for service-based advisors. A lead might fill out your form with genuine interest, but by the time they receive a follow-up email or navigate to your booking site, hours later, the intent has cooled. With embedded appointment booking, you eliminate that gap entirely. The booking experience appears immediately after form submission, right when the lead's interest is at its peak. That should ensure that more leads follow through on initial interest. This may also drive more direct signups from the ad itself. 100% I agree with that. Meta said that the setup process requires no coding. Advertisers can simply paste a scheduling link, book time as their call to action, and publish. The system will then auto-generate the calendar provided and incorporate the tool if supported. Now, this is available for Calendly and High Level. I love that because High Level, I love High Level. I use it for my business, but also Calendly is a widely used system. Those two tools are going to cover the vast majority of market share of people who will actually be utilizing this. So I think that's really, really awesome that they're starting off with both of those there. And then lastly, you can see here, I want to kind of zoom in here, what this looks like. I wonder if there's, okay, yeah, there's no, that's the last picture I showed. So you can kind of see here is that they have this form type. You have your intro, you have your questions. That's where you're basically going to be adding your additional qualifying questions. So people will be disqualified or qualified based off their intent. Then you just have to, show your privacy policy. And then at the end here, what this used to be, and what you can still make this basically, is like a little thing that just basically says, oh, go to your website. Now, what's really cool is what I used to do, and what I was very upset about because this changed, is in my own ads, I saw a dramatic shift in business when I made one big change here. So what I did is I used to run these lead form ads, and this is great because I used to recommend agents do the same thing, and then it seemed to stop being available on Meta ads. It was very unfortunate. And I'm still running lead form ads, but they don't perform quite as well as when I had this feature available. So I would have my lead form ad, right? I get their information, like the general questions. I would not autofill because I want them to actually put in the right email and all that kind of stuff. And then I would have my, conditional logic questions, which is basically those, like, budget, have your timeline, your intent level. I actually put something that's like, hey, like, are you willing to spend X amount to work on us work on your social media, just to make sure that like I'm not wasting their time and they're not wasting my time, right? It all makes sense. So only the people who check off the proper boxes would go through, and that's why I know every lead who comes in is a qualified lead, unless they just lied, which yes does happen sometimes, but it's less often than you would expect. And so that comes in, and then you basically have your form here that would have an ending. And the ending used to be something that you could basically customize. So a really cool thing that I used to do was I would say, instead of like the basic message there, which would be basically would say, um, you're all set is I think basically what it would say, right? And then like it'd have like a little, that'd be like the title, and then at the bottom it'd say like, you'd have the option to be like, check out our website for more, which nobody would really cares about, right? And they want to go back to what they were doing on Facebook or Instagram before the ad caught their attention. So this was always a very terrible, a very, bad system, an ending message, a waste of a message in my opinion. But you used to be able to customize it. And what I would do is say, at this stage, they're have already been considered a lead, right? I've already received their information. It's already gone to my CRM and all that stuff. They're just seeing a little page that says, hey, you're all set. But I would customize that to instead say, you're almost done. And then I would say, book your appointment time below. And then there would be a website link to my actual website, to my VSL letter, right, where I can actually have people book an appointment, right? And so it would book them right to that appointment. They could just book their meeting. Now, what's really cool about this is that this worked really, really well for a while until Facebook has some kind of glitch. It says you can customize a lead form like that last page, but when you do it and you run the ad, I have not had it work. So I'm not sure what that issue is. They might have an issue with you telling them that they're almost done when they're actually technically done. But whatever. Uh, you can't do this anymore. But even though there was no real like, no, there's nothing in the lead form forcing them to do this, right? It was just simply you telling them, hey, like, here's the last step. Like, just book your appointment right here. And then you just make one big button, the only button they can press really, besides like swiping out and closing out of all this stuff, which is harder, that to book the appointment, more people would book their appointment. The easier you make it to do something, the more times people will do it. And the clearer you make it to do something, the more people will do that. But they made it so that you, for some reason, or it's a glitch, maybe it's not on purpose, I couldn't do this anymore, and I would customize the message, and now the lead format would still just always say like, hey, you're all set, go to the website for more, which again, most people will not go to. By telling them that you're almost done, it's one last step, they're like, all right, I just want to complete this and then be done with it, right? And then book my appointment. And then my CRM would follow up with meetings and notifications, and my show rate was still very good, despite, you thinking like, oh, well, they're just booking it to be done with it. People will still show up to something that they booked. So this used to be the system, and I had a dramatic amount of more people would book calls from that because I didn't have to rely on the CRM to send them a text or email, which is a whole separate platform. Even though those would go immediately and I would try to call the lead as soon as possible, a phone call or a text message or an email are different platforms from where they interacted with me. The chances of them remembering what I'm about and why they booked the call is very, very low. So because of that, I found that it was, you have a much lower booking rate when you have to then jump to a whole new platform to get them to book. What was cool about this change here is cool on two different fronts. One is that, again, you get the whole same completionist aspect that I used to have with this whole system here, right? You're kind of giving them the last step there for them to do the next thing, and they're more likely to do that because it's right when they're filling in their information. They just gave you their contact information. They're interested in the thing. They're going to book the appointment. It's right there. Why would they not, right? Why would they hold off? It's right. It's super convenient for them to do it right now. So one, you're going to do that. But then two, what's really, really cool, and I don't see this in this article here, is that basically is, Facebook's ability to optimize. I'm going to say Facebook's optimizing. So I don't see this right now. But what you can do in these ads and in lead form ads in general is you can basically choose what your goal is, right? If your goal is just to get as many leads as possible, or if your goal is to get higher intent leads, you can choose those options when you're actually building your lead form ad. So in the very beginning, you basically say like, what's your main like your goal is to get leads. Cool. Next, your secondary goal, is it to get the most leads or is it to get the highest intent leads? Now, when you would put highest intent leads, all right, or the highest likelihood of converting leads, that would rely on the CRM and Facebook communicating really, really well, and also you having enough data in the pipeline for it to understand like what it's trying to do. Basically, what would happen is that your ad would send people to your well, you'd get their information that would send the information to the CRM. The CRM would then try to like book your call, and then ultimately, of close, close, right? Close the lead. So basically, you would need to have your CRM really, really well set up and all the data here and just enough data for this to actually be relevant, which is probably like 1,000, 1,000 bits of data in here, like 1,000 leads or 1,000 conversions of people going in from the ad through this whole process to ultimately close. And then if you integrate everything properly, the ad would then basically be told by the CRM, which is controlling this whole phase here, right? That, hey, this is what a lead looks like who actually has a high intent of closing. And this is what a lead looks like who does not have a high intent of closing. And that would go back to the ad, which would then help the ad be like, okay, let's get in front of more people who are closer to this guy, who are more likely to actually close. And that's how it can optimize for converting, like higher conversion leads. Again, only relevant when you have a lot of traffic, because the more traffic you have, the more sample size that you have, the better it's going to go off of and the more effective this will be. That's kind of a pain point when you're selling higher services like I do or like real estate agents do, because you're just not getting quite as much volume to be able to send this back to the ad, without spending a ton in advertising. So because of that, this is a different way, because basically if on the lead form ad, they can just book the call right at the very end, that instead can give the ad way better data about, hey, who's higher intent, who's actually booking a time to me at the very end of the lead form. Well, that tells us who a conversion lead is as a faster feedback loop, as a faster bit of information to help the ad actually get more optimized leads and not just get highest volume leads. And so when you're able to do that, what you can start to do is send traffic faster and get more data to then let the ad know who is a better lead. Even outside of just your questions that optimize, you can also optimize it based off the people who are actually booking appointments, right? Who actually have that higher level of intent. They might say they're really ready or really incentivized to buy or sell a house, but actions speak louder than words. If they actually book the appointment and they do the actions that show that they have higher intent, that's better for us, and it's a better indicator that they actually do have that high intent, right? Which is what we want. We only want to talk to leads who are highly interested. So this is something that Facebook's optimizing will, I'm sure, help you utilize and help you get better performing ads, because if they can book a time very easily and that can just tell the ad, hey, these are what the leads look like who are actually booking times, it can help the ad get better and better and better as time goes on. So let's jump back to the article here. Oops. Let's jump back to the article here. Okay. So the process supports Calendly and high level. Meta said that support is coming in early August, and the company plans to add more scheduling partners over time. It's a good update and should see more people signing up directly from Facebook ads, subsequently driving more direct response and bookings. Embedded appointment booking is being rolled out for Facebook ads only, so not Instagram, with full global availability expected in October. Real estate agents, if you're trying to get more business from your social media, whether that's paid or that's actually just organic posting, I want to give you a free gift. Right below in the first link in this video, there is a link to our Realtor Content Blueprint. It's going to show you 3 deep tactics that I've used to help real estate agents get massive brand exposure and leads from their organic content. And there's also some ad strategies in there as well. And actually, after you do that, so if you put in your email, we'll send it to you for free. And after that, there's actually a couple other resources you can use too that are a little bit more paid focused for quicker lead gen. So check those out, and we'll see you on the other side.